Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Journey podcast. I'm Sana. Today, we're talking about intuition. Not the fluffy, just vibe it out version, the practical version, the kind that helps you get mental clarity, regulate emotions, and make everyday decisions without spiraling. Now, here's a quick quote to anchor us. Trust yourself. You know more than you think you do, as said by Benjamin Spock. Now, if you have ever said, I knew it after the fact, this episode is for you. If you have ever said, I have no idea what I'm feeling, then it is also for you. So, listeners, before we jump in, a tiny note. This show supports mental wellness, but it is not a medical advice. If you are in crisis or you need professional support, please reach out to qualified mental health professionals in your area. And yeah, let's proceed to the introduction here, listeners. So let me introduce my guest to all of you. Athina Krol, a multidimensional trans-channel oracle and priestess. Her spiritual gifts awakened in childhood. She has worked for years helping people reconnect with guidance, decode their soul blueprint, and also develop clearer intuitive sense. She is also the founder of channeled modalities, including Channeling Spirit Academy and Isiska. She has built a seven-figure spirit-led business, but she's very clear. This is not about business strategy, it is about purpose and alignment. So, Athena, welcome to the Mindful Journey, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Sana. Excited to be here with you today.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, the intuition it gets thrown around a lot. I mean, some of us we call it guidance, some call it pattern recognition, some call it anxiety in a trench coat. So, what is intuition in a way that doesn't require anyone to blindly believe you?
Beautiful, great question. Thank you, Sana. And intuition is one of our innate gifts. It's something that every single person has the ability to access, the ability to tune into, and the ability to leverage for our life, for our business, for every single part of our lives. And it is one of the most important gifts that we have because it allows us to actually see, sense, know what maybe isn't being revealed to us. So it's very, very powerful. And there are lots of these perceptions that as humans we have. We have the survival brain, for example, that recognizes patterns that maybe our conscious mind doesn't see, that shows us potential threats. We also have neurotransmitters in our gut, which is why we often feel these emotions within our guts, or we have reactions. Anxiety can sometimes come with a sense of nausea or even stomach aches. Intuition is like an extension of that. It's a little bit deeper. Intuition actually works with the body's energy field. The body itself is energetic, and the body itself is like a living pendulum, meaning it is constantly responding to the energy in the world around you, the energy of every single person that you meet and come across. It's the sensation when you walk into a new place and immediately go, oh no, the energy isn't right here. Something's off here. This doesn't feel right. Or the experience when you meet someone, and even though they might be charming and friendly, there's a deeper part of you that goes, no, I don't think I should trust this person. There's something about it. And a lot of the time, intuition feels illogical. Like everything might look good on paper, that there's a deeper part of us that is feeling and picking up on the energy because we're all connected energetically. And in this connection, our body functions as an energy reader that communicates us to our intuition, which is this knowing. And when we access it and activate it, we actually are able to sense the truth behind things, intentions, situations, places that might not be shown to us.
Wow. I mean, you have actually defined in such a way where, like I had some like aha like moments within my mind, because the there's a huge misconception around intuition is that it is a gift for people. It can be only, it's a god gift, and not everyone has. But I as you said, I absolutely believe we humans, we all have it. It's just that we are yet to unlock the power, or maybe we are yet to become aware that our intuition is not just a kind of a nudge or a confusion within us. It is actually a very, very powerful kind of a strength that has been given to us.
100%. And this is where sensitivity comes in really powerfully. Because, as you said, every single person has intuition. It's literally a part of our energetic makeup. It's something each one of us has. But our communication to it, our ability to hear it and be able to respond to it, depends on each person's individual connection to their own sensitivity. So the more sensitive a person is, so for example, empaths here are a great example because they're very, very sensitive to energies. They might be people who feel their intuition far more strongly than maybe someone who doesn't really listen to those nudges. And oftentimes, because we're we're raised in societies that tell us to ignore that and to focus on what's logical, what's on paper, what's in front of us. And we're discouraged from really acting on our inner knowing and our inner certainty. And so as children, we push down those feelings, we don't acknowledge them, and the feelings grow softer and we learn to tune them out. So for many people, those communications are still there, but we've just forgotten how to hear it because we all heard it as children.
Mm, yeah, exactly. Hey, listeners, if you are enjoying the mindful journey, take 2 seconds to follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. It helps the show reach more people who need a softer, steadier space to land. And if you can leave a quick review, it seriously make a difference. Now, let's get back to the conversation. And Athena, if intuition, if it is a subtle data, what are the top three delivery methods people confuse the most? Like body, thought, or emotion. Like how do you categorize it so listeners can actually track it?
Great question. And that's the thing. Everybody's intuition speaks to them slightly differently. And you mentioned at the in the opening talking about anxiety. And the thing is, anxiety can be your intuition speaking to you. So, as an example, when I was a child, I always used to have this knowing that when something bad was going to happen, I would know it. And it would feel like this anxiety, but also not just general anxiety. I remember it as an anxiety that I felt in my stomach. And sometimes it would get so severe that I literally had to stop whatever I was doing. I remember once being at a basketball game and I couldn't even play, and I just had to sit and wait for the bad thing to happen. And it wasn't always a horrible bad thing that happened. In that specific scenario, it was a fight with my father. But as soon as it occurred, the feeling went away. So intuition can also tell us what's forthcoming, what's in the future as well, and sense us to it. And I had those experiences a lot, and this is very common that intuition communicates through feelings. In fact, it is the most common way. Sometimes we meet someone we have a deeper soul connection with, and our intuition just recognizes them, and we feel this sense of connection. Our heart opens, we feel magnetized to them. And even though we might not know them, we just feel that pull, that deeper knowing. Sometimes it is a feeling of illogical anxiety, like why does being in this space give me anxiety, or why does being around this person? And it's really great to be able to, when someone is sitting with a decision, to actually tune into and visualize both of the potential decisions and what life would look like, and then notice that feelings that come through it. Now, intuition, it is a little bit deeper than nervousness because an a decision can be fully aligned and be the exact right path that is needed. And though that might still come with nervousness. It might still come with mild fear or even mild anxiety, but deeper below it, there is this excitement, this feeling of knowing. And it gets stronger and stronger the more we communicate with our intuition and invite it to lead. It's how I make all of my decisions in life and business is through this inner knowing. So emotions are the number one place where our intuition communicates to us. One of the other ways that intuition communicates with us is sometimes some people receive it through actual instruction. So it might be, for example, that you're communicating with someone, you've just met someone, and you hear this voice in your mind saying, "This person is not for you," or "You need to go now, you need to leave a place." And that's your intuition also communicating with you, but your body is translating that energy it's receiving into actual thought. So that's one of the other ways that it is experienced. Sometimes some people also have visceral physical reactions. So because it's all connected, intuition is very, very visceral. It is very physical. It's in our body. So bodily sensations can come up. We can have not just emotions rise up, but also temperature changes. We might feel our nervous system begin to flare up and actually shift into fight or flight and go, why am I shifting? Which a lot of women do describe these experiences when they have told stories about when they met serial killers, but they didn't yet know that it was a serial killer. It was their body that went into fight or flight. And they could just hear this voice saying, you have to get out of here. It's not safe. And there was their intuition telling them that even though this person that was appearing in front of them was charming and lovely and everything was good on paper, deeper down there were negative intentions that this person had with them. So it is really through the body that the intuition mainly communicates.
Hmm. Yeah, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. And also, Athena, sometimes, like, I'm just trying to imagine a situation, let's say, and this is not the like people would call deja vu, but let's say we are in a similar situation, the the kind of the preview what we have had experienced probably, and it has been like a traumatic experience probably in childhood or maybe a few years back, and now once again we are our inner or our mind is kind of seeing the same patterns occurring, then instantly our reaction would be, no, this has happened before, I know what's going to be the output, so let me just pull myself completely away from it. So can intuition be like a blocker in terms of taking risks, or kind of just keeping us boxed within, so that we are not able to you know we are just able to push away from those difficult situations, even if they're not similar.
Yeah. And so this is really interesting because intuition is a little bit different from what we're describing, which is the survival brain. It holds and is connected to the nervous system, and it holds all the memories that happened to us, all the past trauma, but also ancestrally, the trauma that previous generations went through. It's all held and stored within us. And it does act as this informant. It does let us know when situations are unsafe. And if we've had an experience like in childhood and we're presented into that same scenario, those warning signs can go off, and we can feel our nervous system, that survival part of ourselves as well, saying, no, 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 this isn't for you. This isn't safe, because that part of us wants to keep us safe. The subconscious is prime directive to keep somebody safe. However, this part of us, the survival part of us, which stores all of these patterns to keep us safe, it doesn't always agree with intuition, because intuition comes from the higher place. It comes from what is truly in alignment for us, and it reads the energy directly. So intuition is something that can actually help us when we're taking risks. So for example, in business, if there's a decision that needs to be made and it does feel a bit risky, there might be trauma in the survival part of our brain that's connected to our nervous system that says, no, I witnessed my parents invest in something and it didn't pay off. And then we struggled and I watched them in stress and they got a divorce. And that memory lives within us. And it's telling us, no, don't take this risk. But if that risk is actually what is going to lead us in the right direction, unlock what is meant for us, and actually bring forward our desires, our intuition will be saying yes, even though the survival part is saying no, I'm in fear around this. I'm in fear. And that's why it's so important to open up these channels of communication, because the reality is there are lots of parts of ourselves communicating with us. We've got that ego survival part, which is just always wants to keep us safe no matter what. But if we only listen to that part of ourselves, and if we continue to operate and live within that part of ourselves, then we end up in a really comfortable life, very average, mediocre life, very, very safe, probably quite similar to what our parents experienced as well, because we would have viewed, or sometimes the opposite, whatever we consider that survival part of us considers as safe. However, for the person who wants to do big things in their life, who wants to do something new, who wants to break free of generational patterns, who wants to create something, even something extraordinary, it requires us to take risks. But that's the truth about risk, that not every risk is going to bring us a positive outcome. Not every risk is going to pay off. But that's when we lead with intuition, because when the intuition says, yes, this is a line, this is a risk that will pay off, and we hear that voice. And for many people, it just comes with a knowing. You'll hear people say, it was so scary. It's a massive risk, but there was this part of me that just knew, I knew I had to do this deep down. I knew I had to do this. And that deep knowing, it then pays off. And people look back and go, wow, if I didn't do that one thing, my God, my life would have changed. And I'll give you an example here. When I was studying, so I studied kinesiology. And I remember having this deep knowing. This was right at the start. I don't think my career had even started. I think it had. I was offering healing sessions. I was right at the beginning of my journey. And I had been studying kinesiology, and I had this calling, this inner knowing that I had to do the next level of that program. I just knew that I had to do it. I had to continue on this path of study. But I was not in a good financial position. It would pretty much drain and empty my bank account if I moved forward and invested in that next level. And I remember when I was then saying to the teacher, yes, I want to continue. And I remember paying for that course. And as I was paying, I was crying, because there was this real fear inside of me. It was that survival brain going, this isn't safe. This is going to put you in scarcity. And my teacher stopped me and said, are you sure? Are you sure you want to continue down this path? Are you sure you want to invest in? And that deeper part of me, that intuition said, yes, yes, it's for you. You have to do it. And I did. I invested in it, and I ended up utilizing so many of those skills and tools for my own work, but also those tools then gave me skills to be able to clear my own blockages to then grow my business. So it was a risk that paid off so dramatically. But if I had listened to that survival brain that was in fear, I would have never taken that path. But it was my intuition that could feel the energetic resonance of that path and said, yes, this is for you. This is in alignment. And so those are the risks that our intuition can guide us towards, that often we have to fight that survival part of us that just wants to keep us safe.
Mm. And that's such a good example of, how this kind of a dilemma goes within us, and how often we probably suck to these survival mechanisms or these coping mechanisms, which our brain, I mean, of course, this is something that we cannot deny, for the fact that, our monkey brain, or
Mm-hmm.
the caveman brain, it
Yeah.
is there for the fight or flight mode and the protection. But then often it kind of clouds the deepest, intuitive nudges that we have. And I think it's very, very important to be mindful and be, aware, to accept or be open to kind of do maybe an analysis or understand that, whether it's your brain telling you to survive, or it's, your intuition. And for that, I believe, there are daily practices
Mm-hmm.
which may not, do a complete overhaul like immediately, but they can help, like micro moments or micro practices. So are there any ones, that you would that you have done or you are still doing, where like without making people feel weird or overwhelmed?
Yeah, of course, and definitely. So that's the thing. Our survival brain, which we've been taught our whole life to listen to, it's so encouraged by parents and by society. Go to school, study, get a good job, rise through the ranks. Like there's very risk isn't encouraged because it's seen as unsafe. Though sometimes to shift, to heal, to do really what is highest soul aligned for us, we have to take that risk. And I mean, this intuition, it's not just about risk, it's also about decisions that are aligned for us and ones that aren't. So, because of this seeking safety that's encouraged within our society from when we were children, that primal part of our brain, we are taught to listen to. We are taught to listen and pay attention and stay safe. So, the majority of people have a very strong connection with that part of us and are constantly listening to it. However, again, if that intuition has been ignored or has been told to shut it down, that part can be very, very silent. So, my favorite process for this is very, very simple and yet very effective. And it is just to do. Firstly, starting off with a silent meditation. So, this is where you close your eyes, you take a few deep breaths, you drop in, and you try to empty your mind of any thoughts. And what you're going to begin to see and notice is that survival part connected to the ego comes in and begins talking, begins to interrupt, begins to figure out, because that part of us is not in presence either. It's always focusing on the past or preparing ourselves for the future. And so this is where you might get nudges of, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? Oh, I still need to do this. Did you organize this? And constantly trying to distract us. And what one can do as they're in this silent meditation and they begin to start noticing that voice come up is to observe it, not to try and silence it, but to observe, how does it feel in my body? Where do I feel like it actually comes from? When I hear this voice, where do I hear it in my head, in my body? What is the frequency of this voice? And begin to build the very clear identifier of this voice. And then once someone is clear on that, they can say, okay, ego, now step aside for a moment and just visualize pushing that ego to the side and then saying, intuition, I call you forward now. Speak to me. Are you here? And you're going to feel or sense or see a yes. And that yes will arrive in a very different place, frequency, emotion, everything completely different to that first voice. And now your job is going to be to get reacquainted with this voice that has often been so subdued. And so this is where you can begin to have conversations with that voice and say, okay, what is for my highest good? I'm trying to decide between these decisions. Which one is aligned? Do you have anything to share with me? And notice as the information comes forward, again, paying attention to the frequency. And what this does is it really teaches you to, one, build a connection with the intuition, but two, also begin to identify which voice is which. And what then tends to happen as you practice this, for example, even just for a few days, you've got a familiarity with what your intuition sounds like. So then when it suddenly interrupts in the middle of the day, you're like, oh, that's not my ego. That's not my survival brain. My intuition is telling me something. Okay, hold on, let me listen, because now you know what it sounds like. So it's a very simple process, but it absolutely sparks that open communication with the intuition.
I really love that, there is a conversation, like an internal dialogue going within us. And I think you addressed something that, probably so many of us we kind of struggle with, especially when it comes to just closing our eyes and being still even for a moment, because that is for me, I mean, to me it looks like, a kind of a privilege here, because we are so much bombarded in today's modern day and age with, distractions, thoughts, happenings, occurrences, and so much of information that, it becomes very difficult apparently to even imagine that, we have to kind of quiet our mind, kind of put it on a sidetrack, and then focus on, kind of exploring the intuitive voice within us, that intuitive guide within us. So, yeah, it may not happen instantly or maybe the same day or even tomorrow or even for this week, but I think it will take its own sweet time to, unearth the intuitive guide within us.
Yeah. And though it can happen quite quickly, I've seen a lot of people do this process because it's all already within us. It's not something we have to go searching for, it's already there. And it's just learning those voices. And most people I see who do that process, they tend to find it quite quickly. So yes, it can definitely take time, but also don't be surprised if right away you're like, oh, that voice is not my ego, it's my intuition.
Hmm. Hmm. And a bit of a kind of a nuanced take on intuition, Tina. Like, can intuition ever be harmful? Like if someone uses it to avoid accountability or dodge hard conversations or make very risky choices. I mean, like, where does intuition it become a liability?
Great question. Here's the thing, our intuition is always aligned with our highest best. And if that highest best means there's a relationship that's no longer aligned with us, or there's a risk that might be quite big on paper, but will actually be very aligned for us, our intuition is something we can trust so deeply because it is always aligning what is with our highest best. That is always the same way the subconscious prime directive is to keep you safe, and it's going to do
Mm,
whatever it can to keep you there. Your intuition is always going to be focused on what your highest best is and to get you aligned with that. And sometimes the reality of it, if we decide our intuition is going, this person isn't for you anymore, like take a friendship, and your intuition is saying, this person is no longer for your highest best. And you might not have realized it yet. This person might be a bit of an energy vampire. There might be something going on behind the scenes you don't know of. But your intuition is just saying, no, it's time to close that friendship. It's probably not going to be taken well by the other person. There's a hard conversation to have there. And yet, even though that can be difficult and it is a form of boundary setting, which sometimes can be hard, ultimately the decision following that intuition always pays off for the highest good.
hmm, hmm. And I think that reflection, and because I think we may have registered or recorded the observations, but then somehow our mind, kind of brushes it off. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It happens. So let's just ignore it. It's not something very unusual. But then deep down, sometimes the our higher self, it may say, no, you have to focus on this. I think something is wrong or something needs to be, kind of be paid attention to. So I think this reflection step, it is leadership, like, focusing on your observations, understanding your thoughts, like that, how you turn intuition into a feedback loop, but not like a fantasy here.
hmm Yeah, and it really is getting to know yourself better. By learning to have this relationship with this intuition, you're learning to understand and know all parts of yourself. It's not just, oh, I'm thinking about something, but what part of me is having these thoughts? Where are these coming from? Is it from trauma, from survival? Is it from a higher part of me? Is it from my intuition? And learning all these different parts of you and how they communicate with you, and like you said, that can then guide us into aligned leadership because leaders, we have to be aware of forecast things before they even happen. And we have to make big decisions. And sometimes we don't know how we're going to turn out. But if we're able to actually tune in and lead from that intuition, then it's always moving forward in the highest best.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Great, great. So, Athena, before we wrap up, I'm very sure listeners, they would like to get more guidance into this, because you are providing so much, wisdom and resources around this. So if they would like to connect with you further after this conversation, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you'd like to connect further or deeper into your intuition and your intuitive abilities, you can find me on Instagram, Athina Krol, or my website, athinacrol.com, or also my book, Soulfire, which goes into this deeply.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, listeners, I have all the links and details mentioned in the show notes. So, just refer to them alongside with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And let's do a tiny challenge for the next 24 hours. Okay, so maybe after this episode or maybe tomorrow, like whenever you feel okay, just take 2 minutes, maybe in the morning, hand on heart, hand on belly, and ask, what is my focus today? Then look for one moment where your body gives you a clean yes or a clean no. Track it, no pressure, just data. So, Athena, thank you so much because I absolutely felt that you brought structure around this, because there can be a lot of misconceptions, especially around intuition. But I really loved how you explained it through your moments, through your journey, through the work that you are doing, and very simple steps to start with this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Sana, and allowing me to share as well with your audience. Thank you.
Super. And to all the listeners out there, if this episode hit, share it with a friend who overthinks everything. You know who I mean. Also, rate and follow the mindful journey because it helps more people find these conversations. And until next time, this is your host, Sana, and this has been Mindful Journey. And remember that intuition is not loud, it's not chaos, it's clarity you can feel. This is your host, Sana, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.